After 2 seasons down in the Championship, Bournemouth are back up in the Premier League. Here is how they did it. Big congratulations to Bournemouth, back in the big time. We'll get to this season imminently, but let's quickly find out how we got here. Bournemouth came down 2 seasons ago following probably the greatest decade in their history. They're promoted from League 2 in 2010, then from League 1 in 2013, then up from the Championship to the Premier League in 2015, where they spent 5 seasons at the top level under Eddie Howe, including a 9th placed finish in 2017. Relegation saw club legend Howe depart as manager, as well as some huge names on the playing side, as the Cherries look to mitigate the financial implications of not being in the Premier League any longer. Out went Nathan Ake, Callum Wilson and Aaron Ramsdale, with little arriving in the other direction. Howe's assistant Jason Tindall was promoted to manager, with Bournemouth very much perceiving there was enough in-house already for them to bounce straight back last season. The side built around Arnaut Danjuma, Dominic Solanke and Phil Billing finished 6th. Came up against Brentford in the playoffs, who really knew it was their time, and it was another season for Bournemouth in the Championship. And all of this leads us to the arrival of one Scott Parker as manager at the start of this season. Bournemouth once again sold potentially their best player in Danjuma, but they did retain Solanke and Billing. They brought in Ryan Christie, Jamal Lowe, Emiliano Marcondes and Gary Cahill, and it was far more in the way of backing for Parker than Jason Tindall got. But just wait until January when you really want to see Bournemouth go all in on recruitment. We'll get into Bournemouth's brilliant start right after I ask for a favour. Please go ahead and hit the like button to support this video and our channel here on YouTube. Bournemouth's promotion was built on an utterly magnificent start. The Cherries went undefeated for their first 15 games. They had 40 points on the board after just 17 played. That start ultimately gave Bournemouth a lot of headroom for the remainder of the season. And as things transpired, they have used that headroom. The next 10 games were not good at all. Only 2 wins recorded for Bournemouth. Fulham surged off into the distance, never to be seen again. Blackburn had a great run themselves. QPR were pushing on. Huddersfield kept defying everybody. Chris Wilder had Middlesbrough going. Paul Heckingbottom a little bit further back had Sheffield United going. And somewhere off in the distance, Nottingham Forest were sat on the launch pad of their own sensational run. Bournemouth, who, lest we forget, are a Year 2 parachute team at this point, had been fairly prudent, but they decided they were going to gamble on this season in the January transfer window for promotion. In an incredible window and an incredible final day of the window, in came Moore, Dembele, Hill, Cantwell, Woodman, Phillips and Laird to really beef up Parker's squad for the final third of the season. It seemed to work. Having followed up their brilliant start with that horrible run of 9 points in 10 games, the sort of post-transfer window run was back to promotion form, 23 points in the next 10 games. We all knew on paper it was a hard run-in coming down the pipeline for Bournemouth, especially after that postponed Nottingham Forest fixture was dropped right in during the last week of the season. And having lost to West Brom, Bournemouth went ahead and dropped points in 5 of the next 7 games. But vitally, they only lost 1 in 12 going into the big head-to-head with Forest to keep who were now their key rivals and possibly their nemesis 3 points away going into this much vaunted winner-takes-all game. Here we are after the fact, and Bournemouth are back in the Premier League. As usual, much will be made of the financial advantages and the landscape in the Championship. And of course, Bournemouth finishing second now means that 5 of the last 6 automatically promoted teams in the Championship were in receipt of parachute payments the season they went up. To that, and I understand the resentment, I say don't hate the player, hate the game. And we all know the system probably needs a few tweaks and a little bit of straightening out, but it isn't the responsibility of the clubs who may ultimately benefit from said system. Credit must go to the 3 young players who've all had breakthrough seasons this year. Keeper Mark Travers, so consistent, made that shirt his own. And the left-hand side of Jordan Zamura and Jaden Anthony. Jeff Lerma in midfield could probably play at a higher level in the Championship. And Ryan Christie arrived, landed, adapted really nice and quickly. Philip Billing upped the ante with his numbers once again. And Dominic Solanke has had the season of his career up front. Look, those people who want to use his transfer fee paid while Bournemouth are in the Premier League, it has to be said, as a stick to beat him with, will probably continue to do so whatever I say. But he's certainly cleared up a lot of doubts probably for a lot of people with his performance this season. And that brings us to Scott Parker, the manager. A massively divisive figure for whatever reason. And look, for the people that view Parker suspiciously, this promotion won't make a single iota of difference. They'll continue to argue that he's not up to snuff. He had a parachute team. He had a big spend in January, stumbled over the line, and that this finish was the absolute bare minimum he should have done anyway. And whilst some of that is probably true and some of that is probably reasonable, one has to give Parker credit for 2 Championship promotions now and for going out and developing youngsters. Travis, Zamura, Anthony, and getting a real tune out of Dom Solanke. Look, I'm nowhere near 100% convinced on Parker, but I have to give him the credit he's due, especially when a vast proportion of my audience and the watching football public was waiting for him to fail and fall flat on his face here. Yes, he's succeeded in advantageous circumstances in the Championship twice and failed in the Premier League. But people do run that same best players, most money argument with far more illustrious and better managers than Scott Parker. To make this completely binary, he had one job to do and he's done it. And for that, I applaud him. So, congratulations to Bournemouth. Get involved in the comments. Let me know your reflection on Bournemouth's promotion to the Premier League. And rather than immediately write them off, why don't you engage your noggin a little bit more and tell me what you think they need to do in order to survive in the Premier League next season. That is my views with the season all done and dusted. Well, one game to go indeed. But why not check out my thoughts here from the start of the season when I didn't have all the answers and I was reflecting on Scott Parker's announcement as Bournemouth boss.